Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison is announcing what he calls major litigation tied to Operation Metro Surge. Ellison says the lawsuit involves the extradition of an Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent. The announcement comes amid ongoing legal and political battles surrounding the federal enforcement operation here in Minnesota. Let's listen in.
Honestly, none of us should have to be here today, but let me explain why. On May 18th, 2026, after a thorough investigation, the Hennepin County Attorney's Office, Mary Moriarty, charged an ICE agent, Christian Castro, with 4 felony counts of second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon, as well as a misdemeanor charge of falsely reporting a crime. My office is joining with her office in that prosecution, and I want to commend the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for their professionalism and excellent legal and investigative work. At the press conference where we announced the complaint against Castro, we noted that no one's above the law. A little bit of a refresher. The criminal complaint alleges that on January 14th, 2026, during Operation Metro Surge, Castro fired a gun at the door of the home in North Minneapolis. Despite knowing the home was occupied with multiple people, his gunshot struck Julio Sosa Solis in the leg and injured him. The final impact point of Castro's bullet was a child's bedroom wall. Children were in the house when Castro fired into it. The Hennepin County criminal complaint also alleges that Castro falsely told the FBI that Mr. Sosa Solis and another man assaulted him with a broom handle and a snow shovel, and that he fired his weapon in self-defense. As a result, Sosa Solis and another man were charged with federal felonies. However, after video evidence emerged, those federal charges were dismissed with prejudice. After Hennepin County filed its charges against Castro, a district court judge found probable cause to believe that he committed those crimes. The judge issued a nationwide warrant for Castro's arrest. Castro was taken into custody in Cameron County, Texas, on May 29th. Just 4 days later, Governor Walz asked Governor Greg Abbott of Texas to extradite Castro to Minnesota. Yet, Castro is still not here to face justice. Under extradition clause of the U.S. Constitution and the 1797 Federal Extradition Act and Texas law, Governor Walz's request triggered a mandatory obligation for Governor Abbott to issue a governor's rendition warrant to Cameron County Sheriff Manuel Trevino to begin the transfer of Christian Castro back to Minnesota to face justice, instead of promptly fulfilling his legal, ministerial duty to execute governor's rendition warrant for Castro. However, Governor Abbott has withheld the warrant and held up Castro's extradition for nearly 3 months. The framers of the Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and Congress intended the interstate extradition process to be swift, summary one, in which a state that is harboring a person charged with a crime in another state promptly returns the fugitive as soon as requesting state demands it. The U.S. Supreme Court unanimously upheld this black letter law as recently as 1987. This means that Governor Abbott has a mandatory obligation to issue the governor's rendition warrant for Castro. He has no discretion. I repeat, he has no discretion to decline to do so. None. Yet Castro is still not here to face justice. Governor Walz's office has repeatedly asked Governor Abbott's office for updates. Governor Abbott did not respond. On July 30th, Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty wrote Governor Abbott requesting an update. Governor Abbott did not respond. Last Thursday, August 13th, I sent Governor Abbott a letter, which is available for your review, to inform him that of his mandatory legal obligation to effectuate the return of Christian Castro to Minnesota to face justice, whether or not he needed the lesson. I cited all relevant constitutional and legal authorities that leave him no discretion in this matter. I informed him that if he did not sign the rendition warrant by the end of the day yesterday, I would sue to compel him to do so. Governor Abbott did not respond. Christian Castro is still not here to face justice. Therefore, this morning, my office filed suit asking the federal court in Texas to require Government Abbott to sign the warrant to block to sign the warrant and to block the Cameron County Sheriff from releasing Castro until Minnesota law enforcement can arrive there to physically transport Castro here to face the charges laid against him. The court has the authority to order the governor and the sheriff to do this. The 1987 Supreme Court decision that I referenced earlier, known as Puerto Rico versus Branstad, affirmed the principle that states must honor each other's extradition requests, and asserted that the federal courts have the authority to compel states to honor each other's extradition requests. The urgency of this filing is that Texas law imposes a 90-day limit on the detention of fugitives awaiting extradition. This means that as early as August 26, a week from tomorrow, 90 days after he was first captured and detained, Christian Castro could walk free from jail in Texas and flee justice in Minnesota, including by leaving the country. In the last 5 years, Governor Walz has honored all 21 of Governor Abbott's requests to extradite fugitives to Texas. In that same period, Governor Abbott has honored 11 of Governor Walz's requests to extradite fugitives to Minnesota until today. When I said none of us should be here today, this is exactly what I meant. Christian Castro has been charged with breaking the law in Minnesota. He must face justice in Minnesota. Governor Abbott should have granted Governor Walz's extradition request long ago and is required to do so now. I should never have to file this lawsuit, but I have done so today to protect the Constitution, the rule of law, Minnesota's rights, and the people of the state of Minnesota, and, of course, the fair administration of justice. Christian Castro is not above the law, and Greg Abbott isn't either.
And I want to start by thanking Attorney General Keith Ellison and his staff, who've been great partners in our work to bring accountability for unlawful actions by federal agents during Operation Metro Surge. Christian Castro, a federal agent, as you know, is accused of shooting Julio Sosa Solis in the leg through the closed door of an occupied home on January 14th of 2026. He struck one person, Mr. Sosa Solis, but the bullet traveled through several walls in the house and put at least 3 other people in grave danger. Such an action is a crime in absolutely every state in this country. The Hennepin County Attorney's Office charged Christian Castro with 4 counts of second-degree assault with a dangerous weapon and 1 count of falsely reporting a crime. He was arrested in Texas with the help of the Texas Rangers, where he remains in jail. We have been working to extradite Mr. Castro, meaning have him sent here to face charges since he was located and arrested in Texas several months ago. So as the Attorney General said, and I don't think we can emphasize this enough, extradition is a routine administrative process. It isn't about politics, it is the law. There are very few cases on it because this hasn't happened very much in the past. And the cases that are there are very clear. This is an administrative process. This is not a legally discretionary task. Governor Abbott is required by law to sign the governor's warrant that has been with his office since June 3rd. As the Attorney General said, this is not a position we should be in. We should not have to file a lawsuit, which is entirely unnecessary, or should be, because this is simply an administrative task. Mr. Castro or anybody else doesn't have a right, by the way, for a trial in Texas, in the other state. He has a right to an extradition proceeding. We must prove his identity, which we are prepared to do, and the actual trial would take place here. It's interesting, and I think everybody should think about this. The extradition clause is actually in the United States Constitution. It is a constitutional provision, and the idea of it is that the states, all of the United States, each respect the criminal processes of other states by returning to the charging state any person fleeing criminal charges. You all know this. There are many times when somebody's charged in one state, they end up in another state, and the extradition clause and all of the statutes that came behind it are to make this a simple process, a simple, straightforward process. When he arrives in Minnesota, Mr. Castro will be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and he'll have the right to present any defenses that he has. There is absolutely nothing that should prevent him from being brought to Minnesota to receive a fair trial. And as the Attorney General said, and we can't emphasize enough, the only thing stopping Mr. Castro from being here in Hennepin County to face the appropriate charges is a signature from Governor Greg Abbott. I encourage the governor to sign the paperwork today to avoid litigation in what should be a completely unnecessary lawsuit. As the prosecutorial authority for this incident, Hennepin County Attorney's Office is prepared to begin its prosecution as soon as Mr. Castro is delivered to Minnesota in state custody. It's worth noting that during the time that we've been waiting for Governor Abbott to sign the Castro extradition warrant, and remember that's June 3rd, Governor Abbott has signed 3 extradition warrants for other defendants in Texas facing criminal charges in Minnesota. In other words, since Castro's been sitting in jail and since our governor, Governor Walz, got the extradition paperwork to Abbott on June 3rd, we have requested, Governor Walz has requested 3 other people who were sitting in Texas jails, and Governor Abbott has signed the appropriate paperwork in each case. And as the Attorney General said too, in the last 5 years, more than 30 extraditions have occurred between Texas and Minnesota. And that establishes a long track record of extradition cooperation between the 2 states, which is as it should be. I'm hopeful that the litigation that the Attorney General has filed today will move us towards the correct outcome, and that is Mr. Castro appearing in a Hennepin County courtroom to be held accountable for his actions.